you go. How about I turn my camera back on?
Building as we
Welcome,
fly.
welcome, welcome to another week. And this is going to be quite the show. I really think it is. I actually have a clip for this show that I am going to play that we are going to discuss. I didn't even see the full clip. I saw enough of the clip to know it's going to rile some people up. I think this gentleman actually riles people up anywho. But welcome to another episode of Fuck Your Feelings, the show with me, Toshiba, and my guest host, Twins Inc. Get used to this face as you will be seeing more of him. Yeah, right? Like, let him know. You're going to be seeing more of him. Some announcements at the top of the show. We will be having a weekend show on YouTube, and we will be having a weekend show also on Instagram. The weekend show on YouTube will be Saturday. It is going to be with a past Kendra G guest. I interviewed her a few months ago. Unfortunately, that interview, the sound wasn't as good as I would like it to be. So we are doing an update with a Kendra G guest. She is known for having 5 kids with 5 different men. So I want to see how her interview went. Her name was Courtenay. If you look up Courtenay, 5 kids by 5 men, Kendra G. It's funny, I did that and a whole bunch of people showed up. It was so fascinating. When I did that, a whole bunch of people showed up, but we are going to be doing an update with Courtenay, a Kendra G guest, to find out what her experience has been like since the show, and if she's actually found someone. And on Sunday on Instagram, if you're not following me on Instagram, please go and do so. Fuck Your Feelings, the show is also the handle on Instagram. We're going to be doing a update of a gentleman who also was a Kendra G guest. He has 4 kids by 2 different women, 3 of whom were with his ex-wife and another with an ex-fiance. And so I wanted to try to get them together. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. So we're doing 3 shows this week. So I actually want to compare what the situation is for a woman who comes with 5 kids by 5 men and what her experience and what her inbox look like versus a man who many would say, I think somebody called him an educated pookie because he's actually quite educated, quite well spoken. But because he had multiple children by multiple women, they were calling him an educated pookie. So I would love to hear his update, and that's going to be exclusively on Instagram. So if you want to see all of these shows this week, make sure you're following us on YouTube and following us on Instagram. Well, Mr. has a comment. I can see the motherfucker said he's a little bit better. 5 times 5, shaking my head. Mr. said, women who, I got to put this one, women who are 5 times 5, that's what they think men deserve on her show. Listen, I can't even go. The thing about it is we say a lot about, I hear a lot about that particular show, yet we all watch it, right? Like, people are consuming it. She hasn't gotten, famous to many of us by accident. People are consuming that. So I don't know what to say. Like, we should consume different content if that's not the content we want to see. And the reality is the people who come on who are well-spoken and put together, people say that they're boring and they don't want to see that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ever seen those ones watching? I don't want to call her name out because I don't want to speak badly of the show host, but you know what? When she does get the people that, we want to see, people end up saying that they're boring. Thoughts before we jump into our topic?
Yeah, I mean, right in the comment, it was conceited. I ain't gonna mess the name up, but yes, I agree. It's all entertainment. That's all it is. So we talk about the well-spoken person, it's kind of lame, but the ignorant, ghetto,
yeah,
it's all about entertainment. So that's 100% correct.
Yeah, so we've got to do better in terms of what we consume, because our brains want the drama, and so she gives the drama, and people respond to the drama. I've always said, as a non-American, if you were to be outside of America, not familiar with America, and just watch the content on that show, you would walk away thinking that Black people as a whole are dysfunctional, because there's a lot of dysfunction on that show. So let's start really hyping up the people who come on and are amazing and a great representation, than the people who come on and talk about the fact that they had relations, last night, and the man is still walking around in their house, but they're on a show looking for a new man. Let's not make those people famous and go viral. Let's make the people who are well-spoken, well-dressed, and poised, and really know what they want, and a great representation famous. Anywho, enough about that. So we got into that because we were updating you on the fact that we're having 3 shows this week. So again, follow us on Instagram. Make sure to follow me, Fuck Your Feelings, the show, and make sure to follow TwinsInc also on Instagram, because we are going to be going live with the guest to find out what his dating experience has been like, and with the young lady on YouTube to find out what her dating experience has been like. I'm going to be putting out a couple of clips from the first interview I did with her. Very fascinating young lady, as you will find out. Not the prototype of what you think of a woman who has 5 kids by 5 men. I was quite surprised by her upbringing and what led her to the place that she is. Anywho, getting to our show. 50-50 relationships. Before I get into the topic and the clip, I'm going to go to the poll that I did on Instagram to let you know what the response was for the poll of whether or not people would do 50-50 relationships. So let me find it. So do you believe in 50-50 relationships? And the vote is as follows. It was actually 50-50. 50% of people gave 50-50 relationships a thumbs up, and 50% of people gave 50-50 relationships a thumbs down. Now, I think when we think of 50-50 relationships, I think people think of it in one specific way, and we'll just get to it. It's the finances, and that as a woman, a man is asking me to pay 50% of the living expenses for a home we both share. I don't think anybody's thinking about it in any other way, but I'm expected to pay some bills, and I don't want to do that. So, do we want to share our thoughts first, or do we want to go into this clip? What say ye, twins?
Let's start with the clip first, and then we can branch off from there. Let's start the clip.
Okay, because you don't even know what it is, so it's going to be a surprise to you too. Okay,
hey, that's good.
Let's get into this clip. Many people will probably recognize this gentleman who's about to be on your screen and may have some particular thoughts about him. So I would love to hear what people think after they watch this clip. And go.
It's 50-50 in the relationship. 50-50 spending, 50-50 taking care of all responsibilities, 50-50 taking care of the kids. Why is this 50-50 thing been so prominent, and why does it not work for both men and women?
All right, so as far as why it has risen to prominence is, again, I think it's this fight for equality. We were fighting so hard and we're losing sight of the bigger picture of balance. Balance is what we need for success, not equality in the relationship. And I would argue that equality in a relationship does not actually exist, because if you were to examine 50-50 relationships, what you will find is over time, it's going to shift to one person doing more than the other. And I would argue 90% of the time, it's the woman doing more than the guy. Because think about this. The mindset of the man who wants to do 50-50 is very different than the man who's so in love with this woman that he wants to provide for her. His willingness to even accept 50-50, he's gonna be reluctant to do that. It's kind of like going on a date with a guy and one guy's down to pay Dutch and the other guy's like, don't take your card out, I got this. They already have a very different mindset. So that guy who's open to 50-50 from the jump, the chances that he's gonna change later on and wanna take on more is not likely. He's gonna get comfortable in that 50-50 or do even less. Also consider this, even when we say 50-50 on the bills, 50-50 on the bills, in my opinion, would be 20% of your income, 20% of their income. That's not what a lot of people do. The mortgage is, let's say, $1,500 and we split it $750, but the guy, let's just say, makes $80,000. the woman makes $40,000, that's not equal.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? She's making a much bigger sacrifice than he is.
Right.
That alone eliminates this idea that it's 50-50.
What about the whole raising the kids thing of like, you gotta, you know.
Exactly, raising the kids. Now, of course, are there scenarios where sometimes it's the man who ends up doing more? Absolutely. But in most cases, the woman naturally gravitates to being the one who handles the kids more. That's what you're gonna find. So again, you're gonna start to see it get skewed in certain areas to where you're not maintaining this 50-50. But then if we go deeper into why this doesn't work. So one, it doesn't work because it's not really sustainable in the vast majority of cases. I'm not saying no one's ever pulled it off, but in majority of cases, it doesn't work. Number two, there was a study that shows, I believe it was a study, that said egalitarian relationships are like the most sexless marriages or the most sexless relationships.
Egalitarian meaning like
Equal.
50-50
equal, you know what I'm saying?
Sexless.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because basically you're neutralizing the masculine and feminine polarity.
The polarity of it.
Exactly. It's now just neutral.
Flat.
It's flat. It's not, there's no excitement there. There's nothing there. It kind of reminds me of this guy. I don't want to put him on, but I don't know his name, so I guess I could say it. There was this guy on Twitter, I think it was like late last year, and he posted that how his wife just came home from like a 16-hour shift or something crazy like that, and here she is shoveling the snow in the driveway, and how he's so proud of her. Let me get her coffee ready. And the commenters ate him up. Like, they went in. But, in his mind, we're equal, we're 50-50. Look at her doing all these things. But in reality, if a woman has to come home to a man that puts her in that position all the time, doesn't step up, she's gonna start to lose attraction. And you're, again, overburdening the woman. What a man has to understand, and it's actually mentioned in the book, The Way of the Superior Man,
yes,
where he says, don't make your woman your everything. I think what men underestimate is that women are in their head a lot. They're constantly thinking, constantly processing. So if too much is on her plate, she becomes mentally exhausted, mentally worn down. Yes. So when the woman says, I'm too tired for sex, the man thinks, well, you weren't doing nothing all day. Her mind was a million different places all day. By the time she got to this moment, she does not have the energy. When the mind goes, the body goes with it. So when you put too much in front of her, you are taking away her ability to thrive in certain areas. So as the book mentioned, you want to identify as a man, what do I need most from her? What's going to be most important from me? Let's now hone in on those things and find someone else to take care of the rest. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. There will be men who want you, but more importantly is for you to receive the man.
Okay, we're done with that. Thoughts. I put up a thought here from Mr. who says, what exactly does the average modern woman offer a man that is equal to him, protecting her at the cost of everything up to and including his life? I'm gonna say gentlemen first.
Great question. And that was a good video as well. But what exactly does the average woman offer? I mean, what they should offer, I could say it should be peace. That's what they should offer, right? Now, there's a lot in that video that I want to kind of unpack a little bit, though. But definitely, but peace. Peace should be the main thing that the woman should provide, because regardless of if she's out there working 16 hours, he's working 5 hours, whatever case may be, however you want to chop it up, no pun intended. When it comes to a life or death situation, the man's always going to jump up. Or let me go back for a second. When I have these conversations, ladies and gentlemen, disclaimer, I'm never speaking in absolute. I'm never speaking in all, okay? So I'm speaking to the majority, most men, not all men, okay? I just want to get out the way first. So back to the answer. So with that being said, most men, when there's a danger that's going to happen, they're going to be the one who's going to jump up first and protect their woman. Point blank, period. I tapped on this last time we had this conversation. So I don't care how much money the woman's making or how long she works or whatever she's doing. She can be the breadwinner. Cool. Congratulations. I have no problem with that. But if we're both laying in bed in the middle of the night and all of a sudden hear a glass break in the house, and it's only me in the house, or me and you and the kids, whatever, but everybody's in bed, but you hear glass break downstairs, do you think she's going to run downstairs?
I'm absolutely not running downstairs.
My point exactly. So regardless, I'm going to go downstairs and protect the kids and risk my life, right? With that being said. So I was kind of listening to what he was saying, that, the guy might be out working all day, but the woman's at the house and she got a million things running through her head. So when he gets home and he wants to be intimate with her, but she's mentally drained because her mind was running all over the place, right? So he was saying that most men, what we should do is take those things off the woman's plate, whatever the things are, right? Question I have is, so what if the man is taking those things off her plate and making her life as easy as possible, right? So let's say, just throwing a number out there, let's say there's 20 things that got to be done each day, right? And out of those 20 things that have to be done in the household, man and woman, the man takes 15 of those things off her plate and only leave her with 5 things she has to do.
Okay.
And she has the finance to do everything she needs to do. She has the support, meaning that there's another person helping out doing X, Y, Z. But somehow you still got a million things going on, even though I took over 15 things that you don't have to worry about, plus go and deal with the world. But I come home, but you're mentally drained. How does that make any sense? I just want to throw it out there.
Listen, that definitely doesn't make, that I will say doesn't make any sense. And then to that person, I would say you likely married the wrong person. I'm going to put it out there. I'm just going to be plain. I don't do 50-50. I will do 100% by myself, plain and simple, before I do 50-50. That is my thing. And I'm talking about 50% on the bill. I'm going to be straight up. I am not going to suck your dick, have you give me anal, do all the things that I do, and on the 29th of the month, you're going to turn around and ask me for half the mortgage. It's not happening. I'm not doing it. Like I was very clear. I'm very straight up. That was a little vulgar, but that's the reality, right? Like I'm not flipping it, turning it upside down for you. I am not taking care of your every single want and need. I am not showing you love by cooking for you and ironing your clothes. And I used to lotion you. You used to hear my ex talk. I would lotion that man's skin. I would, if he was going to work at 6 o'clock, I was up at 5:30 to make sure he had breakfast and he was fed and he came home and there was dinner. He didn't need or want for anything. I did what you said that a man should do. I took everything off of his plate where he didn't have to worry. He just had to function and go to work and make money. And so that worked in our situation because we talked about it beforehand. Before we ever decided to live together, the conversation was about what would the dynamic of the household be like? What's going to work for our relationship based on what we both want? And we had that conversation and we agreed to what it was. Did I contribute financially? Absolutely. I bought groceries. And I had the rainy day fund. So if anything were to happen, now I made significantly less than he did because I was an entrepreneur and I was consulting. I made actually significantly less than my ex did, but I did have the rainy day fund in case anything happened. And I absolutely would be the one who took care of groceries. And I would take him out on dates and like really do nice things. Like he was very well taken care of. But we talked about this. Like we talked about what do you need to thrive in this relationship and what do I need to thrive in the relationship? And we made a decision collectively about what worked. His biggest thing was I would already have to be paying 100% of my bills. And so you coming in doesn't make a difference. I'm already paying 100% of my bills. I'm not going to ask you for 50%. Now, the caveat was I was helping him raise one of his children. So that there is a bit of a caveat to that I was playing mom to one of his several children. Mm-hmm. But that's me. I'm honest. I don't do 50-50. I will do 100% my role and he will do 100% his role. So 100% of my role was to ensure I took care of the home, I took care of his needs, I took care of his child. And when it came to any decisions that needed to be made in the home, I made them. If I had to have a conversation with him and confer with him to make sure we're on the same page, I did that. But I didn't bring those issues to his doorstep or to his plate because he was dealing with the other things. The same way he didn't bring the financial stuff that he was supposed to deal with to my doorstep, other than the fact that, you know what, I would tell him what bills needed to be paid and how much money needed to go to it. But we made sure that we took care of everything 100% on our list, and that worked for us. It doesn't work for everybody. And I will not marry a man or date a man or live with a man who asks me to go 50-50. It's not happening. I'll do 100% by myself.
I love everything that you said there, right? And one of the main things that popped out with the whole, everything you said, I don't want to say spill because it wasn't a spill. It was just, your truth, right? Partnership. That was the main thing that I got from everything you said about the last relationship you were in, and how, too, communication was had on what the dynamic of a relationship would look like, right?
Yep.
What is your part? What I'm going to do? And let's be real. Let's be honest. Let's keep it a buck. I've been dating over 40 plus years. I have never been on a date or dated a woman or even in marriage where I presented myself saying, hey, I'm looking for somebody to pay 50-50 with, go half and half with me. That was never a thing, right? Or maybe it was an unspoken, right? It just wasn't. It was never a thing for me. Break into your house and then say, listen.
I'm sorry to cut you, Twigs. Listen, I had to put this up. Mr. He's not like what I just said. Mr. just said, imagine someone breaks in the house and it was socially acceptable for a man to say, you didn't suck my dick 5 times last week and I have a headache. You go handle that. I'm sorry. That was hilarious. I ain't even mad at you for saying that. I get it. What I said isn't for everybody. It's hilarious. That was funny.
Have you been married or in a relationship? Like, I need to know. Like, where are you at? Because I got a follow-up question when you respond. That's real, though. That's real. I like that.
That was listen. That was real. That was some real shit. It's not me. Like, I'm gonna be honest, that's just not me. Now, I'm also not the wife or the fiance who has a headache 5 times a week. Like, again, Twins was around. For those of you who are new to the show, Twins has been a supporter of this show from almost show number 1. I don't know how he found us, but he did. But he has been a supporter, and he heard my ex praise me for the most part about what a damn good woman I was to him. And I was the woman who was doing 30-day de-sucking challenges. And he never had to worry. He didn't ask crap. Every night I'd wipe him down and get to town. Like, I was not that woman to go to the point that Steven talked about in the clip. Like, I can't feel sexy and want to give you a whole bunch, but I'm also thinking about the fact that I have to pay 50% of the bills. I'm honest. I don't feel alluring and sexy if I'm like, let me count the 1 and carry the 2 and move the 3. Like, that's not sexy to me, but I feel a hell of a lot sexier when I know these bills are taken care of. I will flip it, turn it, rub it upside down. No.
I can flip it, rub it down. Oh no.
Oh no. And it's always, oh yes. It is very rare that my ex asked for something sexually and he didn't get it. And when the woo-ha wasn't on service, my mouth still works. So I don't know, but that's just me.
But listen, I feel you. Kudos. And I'll say this: it's not really about 50-50. And you said it a little bit earlier in your conversation where you had the rainy day funds, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, in most scenarios, we're not looking for our ladies to pay half the bills with us. Most men, as I stated in the previous show, we shouldn't date until we're financially ready to date, right? Financially, you have to be financially ready to date, marry, ex-wife. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With that being said, though, once you're in the nick of things of marriage and everything else, I'm not really looking for my wife or girlfriend at that time frame to pay majority of the bills. My thing is this: if I'm holding it down, and let's say anything can happen, I just need, hey babe, I need a couple $300. Can you hold me down on that? I'm paying everything else. I'm gonna ask you for $300. I'm not even asking for each month for it. I might ask you for this 1 month. Like, hey, I'm a little short this month. I had a personal time vacation. I had to take time off. I'm sure about 300. Do you have it? And if the answer is no, that is a problem to me.
That's crazy here's the thing. That would be crazy to me that the answer would be no. Because for me, like I said, playing 100% of my role would entail whatever we've discussed that needs to be done, I'm doing it. So for instance, investments. I was the one who bought the stocks. One day, my ex called me and said, hey, babe, I heard this stock because he was in finance. I said, okay, how many shares should I buy? I bought the shares. I said, okay, good. We're good to go, right? I confirmed this, and this is the amount of stocks, shares that I bought. Like you said, I have the emergency fund. You know what? Like when I get married, the 401ks, whatever it is that we need, if we have to live on one income now to make sure that we could live, a better future later, that's what I'm willing to do. When I say to people, like there's a lot of people who get, men who get up in arms when I say, I don't pay 50% of the bills. I don't do 50-50 in that way. It's because, like I said earlier, I'm paying 100% of whatever the role me and my husband have decided. And so that is making sure that the money is in the account. We've got our rainy day fund. We've got our 401ks together. We're making sure the insurance is being paid for because my husband's not about to die for me and I have to put up a GoFundMe. So if I have to pay for an insurance policies, I need to pay for that. Making sure that he's going to the doctor so we can qualify for an insurance policy, right? Making sure that, hey, you know what, we've got this home. I'm the one talking to the lawyer about the living trust for the kids. Make sure we do a living trust instead of a will because there's a difference between a living trust and a will. So when I say I'm not paying 50% of bills, it doesn't mean that I'm sitting around and sitting pretty and doing nothing, but I'm paying 100% of my role. My role just isn't being a financial contribution to what happens in the home. My money is going to the other things to make sure that we are good. Like you said, should you need $300 because something happens, we've got that taken care of. I'm just saying.
Mic drop.
So Mr. saying, with that said, I think most men are happy to play their role in a relationship for a woman who plays her role too. Thoughts on that, Twins?
No, totally agree. Totally agree.
I'd love to know what you think, Mr. And maybe I'll put the link in the chat for any of you gentlemen who actually want to come on, because there tend to be a lot more men that watch the show. So if you gentlemen want to come on, maybe I'll put the link in the chat for you to be able to come on and join if you have any thoughts and you want to share them. But I 100% agree. Here's the thing. I believe in having the relationship you want, right? That's the big thing for me. Have the relationship that works for you. There isn't a one size fits all relationship. And just because I boldly say I don't do 50-50, gentlemen, it doesn't mean that no man ever is going to date me. I get a lot of that type of stuff on YouTube when I make comments of, oh, you're always going to be alone and nobody's going to want you. That's not true, right? Like, you get into a relationship that works for you. If a man wants a more traditional woman, well, stop dating modern women and complaining about them not being traditional women.
I think the problem comes to that they'll introduce themselves as a traditional woman. As time goes, they switch it up on you. That's the problem right there. And it comes down to the accountability, meaning that who's going to hold that woman accountable for her actions, right? Like in most cases, for the men that I know, we always got to be provider protectors all the time. We're constantly got to do X, Y, Z. We don't change what we do. Like once we have something we do, we constantly do the same thing over and over again, right? But we don't fall off, regardless of how we feel. As far as, tell me when to stop playing. Facts.
That was basically what you were just saying. Mr. just basically saying the same thing. But here's the thing. Here's my question to you. Here's my question to you as a man, because I talk about this often about vetting the people that we allow in our lives, right? Like, it is important for me to vet the man that I want to enter my life, because not everybody should get access to you. Not everybody should get access to me. So what for you as a man is your vetting process? If you're saying, okay, she's showing up in a traditional woman form, but eventually turns into a modern woman, what are you doing to evaluate her to determine whether or not her saying that she has traditional values is aligning with the actions that you're seeing before you go, damn, she bamboozled me? Is it that you just didn't vet her correctly?
I'll just say the last thing you just said. I didn't vet properly, right? And mainly because I was younger, right? Not knowing. Now, the vetting process is totally different.
Tell me what your vetting process looks like now. I'd be curious. I'm in your business.
Listen, it's more strict and strategic now. It's a no tolerance. And this might be another topic though, but when you create a man who's been married and now divorced, and he's now in a dating scene, the level of thinking, the things that we're going to deal with, we're not. Like, you know, you're on a dating app and you just swiping left, right, whatever. Yeah. It's the same way, but it's in person now. I could meet a beautiful woman today, sit down, have a dinner, have a conversation with her, and probably within an hour or so, I'm like, okay, it was a nice dinner. You have a good day. She may think the date was going fine. She may have said something like, nope, I'm not even going to deal with that. Like, I'm no longer compromising, right? I think the younger me did a lot of compromising to try to, here we go. Happy wife, happy life, right? Just overall, regardless of marriage or not, if the woman's happy, things will go smooth. That is wrong, fellas. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. We talked about that last week. The whole happy wife, happy life thing for a year.
Like, I never actually thought that Black men were doing that until my ex told me about his happy wife, happy life for a few years in his marriage, until he was like, fuck this marriage. And he ended up being out because he became like depleted in the marriage because he was giving so much and he was getting a lot back. And I think that's one of the things that we actually have to, are we good?
Your audio just changed a little bit, so I don't know if you changed
something. Yeah, my audio did change a bit. I have my headset in, I think it just kicked in. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you. It's kind of a little static, a little robotic.
Okay, you know what? Let me take off the headset then. Hold on.
Oh, you just put it in?
Better?
All right, go say something now.
I can't hear.
Oh, you can't hear.
For some reason, now I can't. Now I can hear you. Do I sound better?
Yeah, you sound like you were before.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, weird. My headset kicked in, and all of a sudden was a problem. But like, I think it's one of those things where we have to take responsibility for the people we bring in our life. Like me saying to a man, I don't do 50-50. And for the first couple of dates, he's like, oh, that's great. But eventually he starts asking me to go Dutch, or when we start talking about potentially living together and he talks about what his future looks like, he mentioned those things. If I get into that situation with him, that's on me. I wasn't listening. I was getting caught up in the swing of, oh, he's a great guy and he's good looking and he's all these things and he's started out well, but the reality is his behavior isn't consistent, right? And I think that's what is important, right? Like his behavior was not consistent. And so for me, it's about the vetting. By the way, I have pinned at the top, if you're watching live and you want to come on the show, I have pinned the link. If you want to actually join the conversation, you can come in and join the conversation. I want to thank those of you who are commenting in the chat, but you can definitely come in and join this conversation. And listen, like I said, I'm going to go back to the one size fits all. We watch these shows, we hear these things, and we hear, women saying a lot of stuff about men. We hear men saying a lot of stuff about women. and, you know, in absolutes, as you like to say, right? Twins likes to say, you know what, this is not absolute. There's some men, some women, but a lot of people have been talking about absolutes. And if a woman says this, like, I know this clip comes out, I'm going to get dragged in the comments upwards and sideways. And I challenge anybody who wants to drag me to come on the show and actually converse with me, because I would love to hear your viewpoint and you can hear mine. But I'm going to get dragged in the comments simply because I said I don't do 50-50, right? They're going to take this one sound bite and determine what type of person I am. But you know what? I don't give two fucks, okay? Because that means you're not the man for me. The man for me, as the woman for you, is someone who actually fits into your life the way you want them to. I fit into my ex's life in a way that was perfect for him. And therefore, I got exactly out of him what I desired, because he was getting exactly out of me what he desired and more, right? A good woman comes into your life and multiplies. She doesn't take away from your life, right? Like it's to the point where people just, when I left Phoenix and I came back to Toronto and I eventually announced that we broke up, I had men in my inbox saying, how is Rob going to survive? Please reconsider this. This is not a good look. That man talked about everything you did for him. I had men in my inbox, Twins. I don't think I ever told you. My inbox was full. Now people checking on me, asking me how I'm doing with the breakup. People were saying, is this okay? Is he going to be okay? How does he go from having a woman who does everything for him to you not being here? If this long distance thing isn't going to work for you guys, how is he going to survive? And I thought, God damn, nobody hears about me and my needs. It was all about him. But we had designed this relationship where he had bragged about how much I brought to his life and multiplied his life and made sure his life ran in the way that it had never run before, that it worked for him. And so, yeah, I didn't pay half the bills, but I did everything related to his job search. Listen, when my ex was looking for a job, he did nothing. I created the email address that it went to. I redid his resume. I applied for all the jobs. I communicated with all of the hiring managers. I responded to all their questions. There was a point I was taking some of the tests, tests that he was supposed to be taking. He would just give me the answers and I would take the test for him. All my ex did was actually physically show up for job interviews. I filled out, when he got the jobs, I filled out all of the information that had to go with the jobs. He just submitted it. And actually, he only submitted if it was in person. If it was online, I submitted everything else. I made appointments because he was in finance for him to go take all of the tests that he needed to do. He just said, babe, where do I need to be and when do I need to be there? Oh, I need to do this. Here you go. I created all of the prep questions for him. I did all of the research on the people who were going to interview him. Like, he did nothing. He did nothing. But because that was my strength. I was a recruiter for many years. I enjoyed doing that stuff. He hated it. When they were talking about the Great Resignation, I turned around and said, you know what? We're getting you another job. I said, here's the plan. Let's talk about the plan. What are you looking for? Let's take these skills. Let's update the resume. Let's do that. We turned around and we got him a much better job, paying significantly more than he was getting paid. And all the man did was show up. I cooked for his boss so he could get to know us, because he was in a very big position. And he's like, babe, I'm going to take them to a restaurant. I was like, no, bring them to the home. I will cook for him so he can see kind of your family and how you live. I brought this very high net worth gentleman into our home and cooked for him. I did my thing. So yeah, I didn't pay 50% of the bills. But listen, I was the backbone for that man and everything he did. And to you and Mr.'s point, like, I played 100% of my role. And that role just ain't paying no damn bills. Except for groceries and a light bill.
It sounds like it's a fair trade-off right there. It's a partnership. It worked for him and it worked for you. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It just wished it all worked like that for everybody across the board. Not the same exact way, but however it worked out. But the main thing I too had, which was great, was the communication and the partnership. I can't stop saying partnership enough, because that's exactly what I had. regardless of anything, the partnership was on par.
And that's what it was. It was a partnership. And reality is people know partnership is generally 50-50. And then let me just give you a clue about business. A partnership, an actual partnership in business cannot be 50-50. And the reason it's not 50-50 is that means that there's no final decision maker, right? If a twins owns 50% of the company and I own 50% of the company, who actually makes the decision in the end of the day? We have to go to a third party in order to make a decision. How partnerships generally go is one person owns 51% and another person owns 49%. Like, or 40 or 60 or whatever it is. Like, there is no partnership that's 50-50. Like, there are no co-CEOs in companies. A company that has a co-CEO is bound to fail because there has to be someone at the end of the day that has to make a decision in their realm. So I made the decisions for the things that were 100% my responsibility. I would check in with him as he would check in with me. But listen, when it came time and we needed a new car, we talked about it, but he came home and he's like, babe, I bought the car. I didn't complain about it. We had talked about it. He went and made a decision because that was in his realm to make that decision. He told me, I said, okay, we have a new car. Great. Okay, when it was time for the kid to go to school, I would take her shopping, make sure everything is good, set up everything to make sure, tell him what day she needs to be there, when the parent teacher, because that was in my realm to do that. So people get all up in arms about this 50-50 and it's a triggering concept for people. But if they would actually take the time to have discussions, it would get to how do we create a partnership dynamic that works for the both of us. And if 50% of the bills works for you guys, then kudos. I'm not against the concept. It's just not for me.
No, I like that. I was sitting thinking what you're saying. I'm like, wow, you're dropping a lot of gems right there. I hope people were sitting there listening and absorbing it, because this is how a good relationship is going to work out, ladies and gentlemen. You have to have a great communication. You got to have the partnership. And y'all both got to just stick to y'all plans. And then also, too, if there were in the partnership role, right, if there's something that one partner is having a problem with or whatever, have that communication so y'all guys can, work through it, right? Okay, no, babe, you're struggling with this. Let me take on that for you. Help me on this. So whatever case may be, just work it out. But I think what happens a lot of resentment is built between two people when it's hard to say. Resentment can be created when there's lack of communication, when y'all have something going on, right? So the partnership's working out fine, at least on one partner's side. The other person ain't saying much about it. It is keeping it to themselves. So you're going as if everything's cool. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing every day, every month. Everything's cool, but the other person is kind of resenting what you're doing because they don't want to say something. I think that's the one thing that can really kill any relationship. Lack of communication, lack of having that difficult conversation. We got to have these difficult conversations. We cannot avoid them. They're not going to go away. If they're not going to get better by time, you have to speak on them. And you got to have, you know what? You can't be afraid to talk to your partner. If you can't talk to your partner, then who can you talk to? Right?
Facts. That should be your first person. Twins, you're familiar with this because you're, again, a lot more familiar with this show than many people. But you know that I have talked about the relationship contract and making sure that there was a relationship contract. So for those of you who are new to this concept, in my last relationship, we had a relationship contract. And we sat down in the beginning of the relationship, and it wasn't actually written down, but it was communication. It was understood who was supposed to do what. And we talked about this relationship contract. It was a verbal contract. And again, we went through my responsibilities and my roles and his responsibilities and his roles. And we would reevaluate that relationship contract, especially when major things change. So when he changed jobs, when we ended up moving, like there was a different things, dynamics that happened if things changed with my company and I got a bigger contract or was looking to get a bigger contract. Like we would talk about this thing and we would reevaluate it because we would say, okay, that's where we were, 12 months ago. Are we still in the same place? If we're not in the same place, how are we going to ensure that, again, both of our needs are still met in the way that we have agreed upon? And do I need to take a little bit back? Does he need to take a little bit back? Do I need to give more? Does he need to give more? And these were actual sit down conversations that we had, because I think people get into relationships and they think that, oh, because we agreed on it in the beginning, it's just going to continue the same way. But the reality is things change, situations change, people change, dynamics change. And we always talked about, you know what, if this show were to become large, and what would that even look like? We were already future planning. What would this look like? Because again, he had kids that I was helping to raise. How would we manage that if we had to go on the road? Like, how would the dynamics look for the kid? Like, we were talking about our present state and potentially our future state, and we had a relationship contract. I mean, what are your thoughts about this idea of a relationship contract?
I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I think everyone should have one. Just that simple. I mean, it's the same thing as I've been saying all the time. It's just the communication and just holding each other accountable. That's it.
Yeah, a lot of women thought that I belonged in 1822.
Well, I mean,
because how dare I say things like that? It made it seem to a lot of women that it was controlling, but the reality is we just had an organized relationship. And you know what? Unfortunately, it didn't work for its own reasons. But I love that man to this day, and I wish him nothing but the best. And he's taught me so much. It was one of the best relationships that I had, because we were so organized and we were so on point, and we always did our check-ins. And for a lot of women, that sounds controlling, but it wasn't controlling at all. It was making sure that at every step of the way, we were both getting what it is that we wanted. And that's actually what started the whole concept of Fuck Your Feelings, the show. We used to have what we would call Fuck Your Feelings conversations. And when he came to me and said it was time for a Fuck Your Feelings conversation, what that meant is for however long that conversation was to be, I was supposed to sit there and listen to understand, not to respond. And I tell a story of one time we had about a 2-hour conversation, and it was his Fuck Your Feelings conversation. And for about 30 minutes of that 2-hour conversation, he was silent. Nothing was said. He paced the room. He formulated his thoughts. All these things happened. And twins, I did not say a peep, because I knew the conversation wasn't over. I was there. I was taking what he was saying in. I was just kind of watching him and, seeing how he was. Like, I went through the whole thing. And after those 2 hours, when I knew he took his final word, only at that point did I respond, because when it was my turn, he would do the same. He would do the same and listen to what it is that we'd say. And at the end of it, we would summarize what we think the person was saying to make sure that we were both on the same page. And interestingly, this is a tactic that I used to be the regional manager of a private school, and I had like a staff of 13. And this was something that I taught my staff to do, because we were dealing with very high net worth people. I was responsible for over 5,000 students in that school. So imagine how much the principals were responsible for. So that was something that I taught them. I said, do not go in already with a solution to a problem when you don't even know if it's a problem. Sit down, hear them out, and when they're done, summarize the conversation and say, as I understand, and you will make a note of the things that they pointed out, because if you are wrong, they will correct you, and you will both make sure that you're on the same page before you start going down solution road. And I instituted the same thing in our relationship, because it was so super important that before we start trying to talk about fixing an issue, we made sure that we were both on the same page about what the issue was. Oh, this is an interesting one. Okay, Mr. Misher said, I don't like kissing on the lips. Me and my woman discussed that thoroughly in capital, uppercase letters, before we even started dating. She didn't like it, but we compromised. I made sure to do other things to compensate. I see the other things in brackets. I see the other things, and that's important, right? Like those are the, And that to some people might seem like a small thing to discuss, but it's a major thing because I love kissing. Like I'm a person who loves kissing. And so if my man said to me, he doesn't like kissing, we would really have to be having a conversation about it. Okay. Mr. says 1.5 hours of listening without one interruption, question mark, exclamation, question mark, exclamation. That sounds like heaven. I don't need that long to speak, but I appreciate that level of respect. Funny enough, the first rule of any relationship I'm in, and especially the last one I was in, was no disrespect. Respect was always top of mind with us. So I'm glad you said that, because when we started this relationship, we did not have many rules, but that one. And it was, we will never show each other disrespect, even in times of anger. And that's why that 30 minutes of him pacing, because he was actually quite angry. I don't remember what I did, but I did something. I don't remember what I did, but I did something. And he needed to express himself, and he was getting heated, and he was like, I'm not about to cuss this woman out, so I'm just gonna pace the room. And he did that, and once he calmed down, again, we continued our conversation. But I think respect should be at the forefront of any relationship. And this is what I'm saying, like, you need to create the relationship dynamic that works for you, not that that's popular in social media, not one that your parents had, not one that you're seeing that your best friends are having with their spouses. You create a relationship dynamic that works for you and your partner. Do you have any rules for your relationship, twins?
Well, not before, but I do now. That's what I'm saying. This is once again, this is different mindset now as being older. Now, I want to go back to a message that Minister said earlier, before you went those few ones. But he said these conversations you should have had before even starting exclusively, let alone marriage, right? The conversations we're having, right? And I totally agree. The conversation we're having now, as we're talking about relationship, it's something we should have before we get to the marriage and everything else. The problem is that you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And the problem is that we don't have the grandfathers or the elders to kind of teach us and mold us on how to get into relationships and deal with women and setting these expectations, right? So, for example, my dad died when I was only 15. So as me going to a teenager, into manhood and puberty and everything else, I had to navigate those things freestyling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have the father figure around to like teach me about X, Y, Z. So some decisions were good, some decisions were bad, but when you don't have that guidance, this is what kind of happens now. Now, the good thing is that now we got social media, right? So, for example, RIP to, the late Kevin Samuel, but he was like a grandfather that most of us men didn't have.
Right. He was Uncle Kevin. He was a godfather. He was a grandfather. He was a dad. He was a lot of things to a lot of people.
Right. And there's core values there. So, with that being said, now with the platform out here, even this show here now, that's being recorded, that's forever online, the chat scene, whatever. Having this conversation now, somebody or some kid is going to stumble across this, and they're going to get the information that I didn't have growing up. And so when they get older or they start navigate through women and marriage, they know what to look for. Like, you're saying a lot of beautiful things here as far as a partnership and what you bring to the table, right? Not to bring to the table, but as a
No, you can say that with me. It's bring to the table.
Right.
Because the table is where we converse and commune, and that's where things happen. Decisions are made at a table. I don't know why people get mad at that when you bring to the table. Going to the table, to the board meeting table, means that important things are going to happen. Like, it's crazy that people get triggered over things like that. Anywho, continue.
Oh, they get triggered because that's the problem. They can't bring to the table, or they got nothing to bring to the table. That's the problem. Or where they do bring to the table, everybody already had a piece of that table, so there ain't much to bring, right? But anyway, I digress. But what I'm saying that, yes, these conversations we're having now, I just pray that they get filtered out in the World Wide Web and young men and young women listen to this with an open ear, mind, and heart. Because if they want better in life, you have to make the change. And having these wonderful conversations and having these real difficult conversation and partnership is going to be key to success to all families, especially Black families, because we're the ones struggling out here. We're the only ones out here beating each other up about, 50-50, what you bring to the table, others. Other races don't have these type of conversations. Now, once again, I don't speak in absolute. They're out there. But as you notice, we're the biggest ones out there having these problems with our families. Divorce rate going through the roof. Marriage is a beautiful thing, but young folks now, they're paying attention to what's going on in the world. They're not really looking to get married now. They're not looking to buy houses and start families. They're okay living in high rises, luxury places, which is nothing wrong with that. But the dynamic of the family, the dynamic of the Black family is definitely being, I don't know, I can't say going away, but it's being compromised. And that's what the government wants overall. So I like that word there, because now I'm going down a rabbit hole.
No, I like that word, compromise. I will say for some of my haters, the men in the, I don't know, what is it, the red pill? I don't even know what that means, but the men who have made it to the point where nothing a woman says is ever of value. Let me tell you, most of the things that I have said is what I learned from my daddy. I had a daddy I loved very much. I can show you a picture of my daddy. Rest in peace to my daddy. A lot of the values that I got from my father. My father did not believe in 50-50. I was saying to someone the other day, when I was growing up and getting educated, my father preached education, and he preached education to me so that I could be a helpmate to my partner. My father wanted to make sure that I was educated so that I could be able to be a part of a dynamic couple, a dynamic partnership, and I would be a helpmate to my partner, because he always wanted me to be a wife, right? And I have been a wife. You're talking to two people here who've been through marriages and have been through divorces, right? So we were talking from experience. And so a lot of the things that I say and a lot of the value systems that I hold come from my father. My father was, he was a flawed man, I say all the time, but he was an amazing father. And the 50-50 thing came from him. My father said, you never pay 50-50. He said, absolutely not. He wasn't having it. And here was the thing and I know it's, my daddy was 70, my daddy would have been 80 this year. So yes, old school and times have changed. But my father saw it as when he was giving, I didn't love my first husband because he didn't feel like my first husband could financially take care of me. Because you got to think, when a father gives their daughter to the husband, he's actually giving the daughter away, which means that the daughter is leaving his home and this man is supposed to be financially responsible for him. I had a daddy who was a true daddy. I would call my daddy for everything. If you didn't give it to me, my daddy was going to give it to me. I'll be telling you that right now. Okay? Like I am. If you ask me my flaw, it is I am a spoiled brat, and I say blame my daddy, but you can't because he's dead. So, right, like I was that daddy's girl. If you're not going to give it, I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to call my daddy. And from my daddy, he was like, I'm not giving you away to a man that cannot financially support you in a way that you were accustomed to from me. And my father did very well and took care of his children. And I actually didn't need or want for anything. My father helped me with my first car. When my ex-husband was having financial issues, it was my dad who gave us money to get a car, because I was like, I'm not taking public transportation. My daddy said no. And I got money to buy a car. So from my dad, it was like, he was like, why am I giving you away to a man who can't support you? So you're absolutely not paying 50-50, because what would this man do if you weren't there? So a lot of the men hear these conversations and things that I say, and I think some assume I didn't have a father. I had a father. I had an amazing father until the day he died when I was 42 years old. And he was always the biggest influence in my life was never my mother. It has always been my father. And my father had very old school traditional values as a Jamaican man that I take to and I hold them dear. And this is why I say I would rather do it by myself than compromise and put myself in a situation that I know that is not what I want. And it's really not what my daddy would have wanted for me. Rest in peace. But I digress.
Rest in peace, Papa.
But I mean, it is what it is, right? So I'm going to read this because we're going to wrap up shortly. I'm going to read this comment that Mr. has up here. He said, furthermore, women who actually have things to bring to the table typically don't need to be asked what she brings. That is factual, right? Because she's already doing the thing she's supposed to be doing. Actual, factual. That is very, very true. And so this triggering of women hearing this, what do you bring to the table? And they say things, I am the table. They're really feeling an insecurity within themselves because a woman who shows up in your life and add value, you as a man, you saw that. My ex used to say that all the time. He said, I knew when you showed up in my life that you added value. It was almost immediately through our conversations, through the things we were saying, through the flow, through the questions that I was asking about where he wanted to be and how he was going to get there, and ideas that I was giving him, and just all of these different things. It was that banter we had. He said, immediately I knew you added value. So he didn't need to ask me any questions like that. He was seeing it in real time, in real life. Thoughts about that before I read the other comment?
It should go both ways. If I'm in somebody's life, if I come into your life, I should make a life better. Vice versa. So both routes. If a woman comes in my life, I hope she makes me a better man. How about that? I make her a better woman. That's how it's me.
Amen. You're supposed
if you
to
take it away from each other, then it's not going to work out.
That I love that, because I always say if I ever am crazy enough to go on the Kendra G show and she asks me, what are the things that you bring to a man? I've always said my 3 answers will be respect, peace, and no matter what happens between us, I'm going to leave him better than I found him. When I go into somebody's life, my entire thing is to add value, not to detract from your life. I'm supposed to add. It's an addition quotient, not a minus quotient. And so for me, I agree with you. Coming into each other's life, there needs to be a value add, because why, of all of the millions of women, would a man choose me over the others if I'm not adding something to his life? So a couple of more comments before we sign off. So Mr. is also saying bingo. That's the significance of a dad walking a daughter down the aisle. He's giving the responsibility of her away to a man, the husband he believes can take care of her as good or better than himself. That's the comment he said there. And then he also says, yes, the woman makes her value very, again, bold, very obvious to that man. So he does not need to ask her what she brings to the table, and vice versa. And he said he likes my 3 answers. He can rock with that. I mean, if you got an uncle, young uncle, cousin, grandpa, young grandpa, dad. I date 50 to 65. My daughter thinks that's a little old. She's like, you have a young spirit. But I'm just saying, look a sister up. Listen, I got to do my advertising here, but just let them know I ain't paying 50% of nothing. Okay, just so we know, I ain't paying 50% of nothing. So final words. We do have a segment that we give advice. So before we cannot forget that. Before we sign off, what is a dating tip that you have for women? And of course, I will do my dating tip for men.
Oh, ladies, what I have for you on this one this week, the vetting process, right?
Ooh.
While you're dating someone or talking to them, right? And of course, if y'all do become intimate, right? You know, if it gets to that point, or I mean, woman, you know, when you first meet a guy, you know you don't give it to him or not. You know right away. So you start talking, oh, he gonna get it, or he's not gonna get it, whatever. But once you make the decision in your head, right, that you say you want to give him some of that cookie, right? Have that other thought in your head talking about, if I get pregnant with him, is he gonna be a good father to our child, right? And if you can't answer that question with a yes, then you might want to hold off with giving him the cookie, right? We still continue the vetting process, but if that answer is no, you might not want to do it, right? That's something I did when anyone I dated, and I was dating for a period of time, I'm like, you know what? I always thought about it. If I got pregnant, would she be a good mother to my kids? And most of the answers were yes. But if the answer was no, oh, I was definitely strapping up 2 times, whatever case may be. Wasn't doing it. But once again, ladies, spend more time vetting the man you're talking to, right? Because at the end of the day, you will carry that burden for the next 18 years. Regardless if he paid child support or not, he's in the kid's life or not, you got to be with that child 90% of the time. Regardless, hands down. Point blank.
Very true.
So think about that process. Think about that while you're talking dating. If I got pregnant, will this man be the person that can raise my kid and will be co-parenting as parents, adult parents? I don't want my plan there. I'm done.
So my advice is actually very similar. And I heard this quote several years ago, and it is one I have committed to memory. And it's to the gentleman. I'm going to say this. Stop being with women who have nothing to lose, but will help you lose everything, and then complain about that woman after she's done that. And I say that to say, as much as we talk about the fact that men have to protect their, women have to protect their wombs, men also have to protect their seed.
Yes.
And the same way, a woman needs to look at a man and what type of father he is, man has to look at a woman and think, if this ended up being the mother to my child, could I deal with her forever? Because being a parent is a forever thing. Me and my ex-husband did not have children. And so when we separated, we were done. We were over. I have not seen or spoken to my ex-husband in years. But the father of my child, oh no, I communicate with him regularly, even though our child is 22 years old, because that is a forever bond. And so as you are out there and you are experimenting, and I'm not going to say that, like, listen, they're double standards, men, you're out there and a lot of you spread yourself. Just make sure that it doesn't matter how good it feels without the condom. If that woman is a woman you look at and say she's good for tonight, leave her in tonight. Because if you decide that you're not going to protect your seed, especially if you're a man of a higher value, that woman's going to have no issues becoming an accidental mother of your child. So again, I'm going to repeat, stop dating women who have nothing to lose, but will help you lose everything, and complain when they do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say, we did not plan this out. It just happened to come out that way naturally. Go ahead.
And so we do. We don't. Yeah, it's so true. We don't talk about. We just say what the topic is, and then we get on. We do this thing. So I'm actually going to have Mr. have the final word, because he's been so great in the comments today. So Mr.'s advice to women is, ladies, to what he does, listen to what he does, not what he says. This is facts. And watch what he does over a reasonable amount of time. And we're not talking hours, days, or weeks. We're talking a heck of a lot longer than that. A reasonable amount of time to recognize the pattern. Don't go ham because he did one thing one time. Great advice. Drops, like you said, drops the mic on that. And that is great advice, because a lot of us ladies have ended up in situations having babies for men that we saw what he did a couple of times and thought that that was enough to bear his child. And now we're on Kendra G looking for a new man after making that mistake several times with several men. But I digress. Okay, so to repeat what we said at the top of the show, we are going to be having 2 more shows this week. One will be on Saturday on this platform here on YouTube. We are going to be interviewing a former Kendra G guest who has 5 kids by 5 different men. I am going to, this is a re-interview for me. This is a recap because I interviewed her a couple of weeks after she had gone on the Kendra G show. I just want to find out what's going on. How did it go? Has she been successful? All of those things. And then on Sunday on Instagram, Please make sure you're following us both on Instagram at Fuck Your Feelings The Show and at TwinsInc. We're going to be interviewing a former Kendra G male guest to get what his experience has been after the show. And he's got 4 kids by 2 different women. I will say the 3 kids are by his ex-wife and 1 was by an ex-fiance. So even though they're similar, they're a little bit different, but he's still a man with multiple children. And what was his experience like in his background? So we're going to do those 2 recaps. So again, Sunday on Instagram and Saturday here. We're looking about 1 p.m. Eastern. I will be putting up a promo for that, so watch out for that. Any final words, Twins, before we wrap up?
Protect your seed.
And we're done. Good night. We
Good
out
night,
this beat. Have a good night. Mr. Get Instagram. Bye.